This is More Than Money with Mapalo Makhu, brought to you by Sasfin Wealth.
Welcome to More Than Money. I'm Mapalo Makhu, a personal finance columnist, and I love having money conversations that change people's perspective about finances. Why am I doing this podcast, you might ask? To talk about money, not the paper stuff. I mean the baggage, the feeling, the emotional, heart-wrenching stuff. We find this conversation so uncomfortable to have, which is why on this podcast, I have decided to have this very difficult conversations. We are going to have some difficult discussions because better money conversations lead to better money confidence, and healthy money dialogue leads to healthy money decisions. My guest today is Ntsiki Biyela. Ntsiki is a businesswoman and the first Black female winemaker in South Africa, a true trailblazer. Ntsiki, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Ntsiki, what does it feel like to be called a trailblazer? Did you ever think growing up that you would be the first Black female winemaker?
I grew up in the village in Mahlabathini, and so being in a secluded space, because it's not in the cities. In the cities, people are exposed to a lot of things in terms of all the different things that are happening in the world. But then being in the village, you don't think that there isn't a Black person doing something, because everybody's doing something in the village. So you think the world is the same until you get outside and then you get exposed and you realize that actually there's so much struggles that is happening outside. So I remember when I was working at Stelekaya, and one of the journalists, they were telling me that I'm the first. And I was like, it didn't click. And then even when that happened, it put so much pressure. And I remember talking to my boss and I said, I don't want this. There's too much pressure that is coming with this. And he had to explain to me, it's like, actually, no, it's like, just be yourself. You walk the path, do what you want to do. And it literally doesn't really affect your plans of what you want to do.
Where do you think the pressure was coming from?
I think the pressure was coming from the expectation from the people. So it's the expectation from the outside world, the expectation that because you are there, then it means looking at the struggles that we are dealing with within the space. And then you're like, am I going to be able to stand up to this? It actually even makes it you like, so what happened if I quit? It's like you're letting people down and you're like, there's all that pressure around it.
And talking about pressure, obviously coming from the background that you came from, where you came from a village and you didn't have a lot of exposure. Now, your family and the community that you come from hear that Ntsiki is a trailblazer. She's the first female winemaker. What were some of the expectations that came out of that?
I think every time I go home, I realize that the people from my village are just proud. When I look back, obviously, when I was like, I'm going to study winemaking, viticulture, agriculture, it was so beautiful and sweet. One of the grandfathers in the village, he was upset because he was like, agriculture is something that we live with. We do that every day. So why would you go study agriculture? You know, you're supposed to be studying something like, being a clerk, but obviously it's that level of understanding of certain things. Because obviously it's like, if you're working in the office, then it's great, but you're going to do agriculture. That's, that's what was being looked down on. But he was saying that from a beautiful heart of saying, my child, I want you to do something better. Why would you go to university to study, So, but I think what I like when I go home is that I'm a child.
Yes.
When I'm at home, I'm just a girl at home. And that makes me be relaxed. That makes me stay calm. That makes me stay grounded to know that when I'm home, I'm at home.
Yes, I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, how did you get into the world of winemaking? Yes, you said you went and studied agriculture, but how did you end up becoming a winemaker?
So the course that I was studying, it was actually, it's in agriculture, but it's specializing in viticulture and oenology, which is grape growing and winemaking. So it was through the recruitment that was done by Jabulani Njangase and got sponsored by South African Airways, and it was specifically for winemaking. When I finished my studies, then luckily I got a job to work as a winemaker.
What were some of the challenges in an industry that is not dominated by women, let alone Black women?
When I was a student, one thing I knew that I'm studying something I've got no clue of. And so it was important for me to do my practicals or to go work in one of the wineries and so that I see what I'm studying, so that I understand what I'm doing. So I did that. While I was working there, I think I was lucky enough to work in a wine farm that was, I'm going to call them progressive, because majority of the employees were black at the tasting room. And also, even for me to land a job there, it was because one of the managers, who's the son of the owner, had spoken to Jablan to say, if you've got any of your students who are studying winemaking, they can come in and get a job this side to get practice. And so when I was working there, one of the general managers took me to a winemaker seminar. And you can imagine that when you are a student and you're being told that you're going to go to the winemaker seminar with the manager, the excitement to say, I'm going to the winemaker seminar, so I'm going to see exactly the people, what kind of people are the winemakers.
Yes.
And then you get there only to find you're finding it's all men, they're all white. You stop at the door and you're like, okay, at least there's one woman. And so she was busy registering everyone. So I was thinking, okay, when she finishes, she's going to come inside and sit down. And then she finished registering everyone and she closed her book and leave. And then you realize that actually this is a mess, you know. I remember standing at the door and I said to the manager I was with, I said, look, I think I need to go back. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And his response was like, if you don't get in, how do you expect this to change? And he dragged me in. And we literally sat there, and obviously they were speaking Afrikaans. I was clueless of what they were saying, and we keep on whispering to each other here, just talking about other on stuff. So, but that was the first encounter, and which was terrifying.
Yes.
And the realization that this is the industry, like this is the industry.
Sure, that must have been quite intimidating, I can imagine. But looking back now, are you thankful that you stuck it out?
I am thankful that I stuck it out. I think also there are certain things that prepares you for such, but you don't know that they're preparing you for such. When I was growing up, I was actually looking after cows at home. I was always with the boys. So we didn't have boys at home. So I had to be the one fetching the cows, milking the cows, be with the boys, play with the boys, fight with the boys, do everything. So being among men, it wasn't an issue, but to realize that actually they're all white. It's like, okay, there's not even a single black soul here. There was the one that was really intimidating.
How do you think you got over the intimidation? Because obviously it is a new environment. It is an environment that can feel overwhelming, I can imagine at times. How did you get over the fear or feeling like you do not belong?
I think what drives a person is, why are you doing something? The reason you're doing something has to be the one that is beyond the fear that you're experiencing. For me, it was, if I don't do this, what am I going to do? I'm here to change my life. I need to support my family. So if I don't do this, what am I going to do? Is fear going to help me, or running away, is that going to help me? And so it was this or nothing. So that basically was a drive for me to say, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And also listening to people. Really, it was, what's the worst thing that's going to happen by me being here? You know, a friend of mine, Neo, she used to say, see and be seen. And one of the things I did also is, like, while I was now just started working, and I would attend different wine seminars, and there will be women, sometimes there wouldn't be women. And one thing I was actually, I think, at that time, then I was like on a mission to say, I need to meet people in the industry. They need to meet me. I need to know who they are. They need to know, most importantly, they need to know who I am. And so I basically made sure that I went out there and I'll introduce myself to people, and I met people in the industry.
Now, let's go back to your childhood. What is your favorite memory of growing up?
Well, there's so many. One of the things was my grandfather, because I grew up with my grandmother and my grandfather. One of the things was my grandfather would say, girls shouldn't wear pants. That was a clear thing. That was known. I think in every village, a girl shouldn't wear pants. But my grandfather would go to fetch his pension, and he'll buy me tracksuit pants, he'll buy me shorts, because I look after cows. So this is how I should dress up. My grandmother would be telling me that I need to cook, and my grandfather say I shouldn't cook because I look after cows. And my grandmother would be like, she's a girl, it's not a boy. And my grandfather's like, I know, but she cannot cook, she must go outside. It was fun. And just knowing that, you know, you're the favorite kid. I was the apple of everyone's eye at home. You know, grandmother, grandfather, my aunts, my mncane, and everybody. So it was, because for them I was the first grandchild.
No, that is brilliant. Do you remember your first encounter with money when you were growing up? When was that clarity to you that actually we need money in our lives?
I knew that we need to have money so that we can buy food. I think the first time that I made money myself, I was doing Standard 5, and when the school is on holidays, and I went to sell fruits in the market. That was at the time when there were those buses for people going to the mines to work in the mines and all that. I remember my grandfather used to work there as a security guard. And so I'll take apples, go sell, bring profit, give it to the shop owner to save it for me. And then I'll take another pack and go sell.
Yes.
And then at the end of it was when school was about to open, I took that money and bought myself uniform. So the uniform I was wearing when I was going to Standard 6 was the one uniform I bought myself. So that was the pride for me to say, actually, I bought myself uniform.
Why was it uniform? Because around what age were you then?
Standard 5, I was 12.
So normally at the age of 12, you'd think that as a 12-year-old, you probably want sweets, you want to enjoy yourself. And yet here you were making this big grown-up decisions.
You see men as a child, whether there is or there isn't at home. I knew that they need help. My mom wasn't working. So with that, you make a decision. Well, I don't know how I make the big decision, but I was like the apple of everyone's eye at home. So I'm exposed to I see things. You can see when they really want to give you something, but they can't because they don't have.
What is that feeling like, knowing and seeing their desire to give you more, and yet they couldn't at that time? When you see a need at home, when you see your loved one struggling, do you make some sort of a contract with yourself that, you know what, I am going to work hard to make sure that my family does not experience this, or that I get my family out of this situation?
That's the thing. You see that and you're like, I need to help. I need to make sure we're out of the situation. You love these people. You don't want to see them hurt. And you see that it's painful for them when they cannot provide something for you.
And now, when you first started making money as a young adult, do you remember what you did with your first paycheck?
It was more like you get your paycheck, you pay rent, you send money home, and make sure you've got money for transport to work. That's basically what you do.
Yes. With that, having to send money at home, how have you dealt with that over the years as you've progressed in your career?
I think at the beginning it was, you do without thinking about yourself. Your thoughts are more about people at home. And that puts pressure on you. So as I grew and learned, I learned that you need to pay yourself first. So that has helped to say, even when I send money home, but because I've paid myself first, then I feel okay. I feel good. Then it's not like then it's an obligation. It's more like I send help at home because it's needed, but at least I've paid myself. So how do I pay myself is I started by making sure that at least I buy myself one thing a month. That's just mine.
Yeah.
Actually, buying myself something is not paying myself. I'm giving myself the basic need.
Yeah.
So the way of paying myself is to put money aside as savings. Then I've got my savings that's paying myself. And then I do my household things and I send money home and then I buy myself clothes because I need clothes. It's the basic needs need to be done. But the other stuff, the only way I'm saying I'm paying myself is if I'm saving money.
No, I absolutely love that. And I think it takes people such a long time to get to that point where they say, yes, I want to help, but first, let me pay myself first. Let me make sure that I have my savings, my investments in order. Have you ever felt some type of resentment before as you were, giving and giving back to the people in your community, to your family? Has there ever been a moment where you felt, I don't want to do this, or I'm giving too much?
When you give, it's an energy.
Yeah.
So if you give energy, it's again the expectation. You're expecting energy back. I remember when my grandmother was alive, going home for me was the most exciting moment. Because when I arrive, I'll get off the taxi. I could see her waiting for me at a distance. I ran going home. I get home, she has cooked food. and which she had said nobody should touch the pot
Until
I
you arrive.
Until I arrive. And that made me feel special. So now when that goes away, but people are still expecting you to do something, but nothing that's get done, which you like, this makes me feel special when I get home. Then that kills the spirit. And you're like, but why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Because then it's more like that is a sign of appreciation. And as human, we all like to be appreciated. But if then it becomes like an obligation and it's like you're supposed to do it and then there's no appreciation of it, then that dents your spirit.
Yes.
You get to a point where you're like, okay, I need to try and rise above this. How do I rise above this so that I can still continue doing what is needed without me having those expectations, because that's what I would like. But at the same time, sometimes you tell the people to say, guys, this is not my obligation. At least there must be an appreciation.
How do you start that conversation to say, I do not feel appreciated, number one. And number two, perhaps there are months in which I will only be able to do so much without people feeling resentful at you that why is she saying these things?
It's difficult to start, but I think sometimes you just need to tell people how you feel. I feel like I'm being a bank here. I'm being a bank that you just go withdraw cash.
Yeah.
The how part becomes kind of tricky depending on the situation, but somehow it has to come up. Because what happens that it dents your spirit. They talk about the golden egg and the goose. You need to nourish the goose to get your golden egg, right?
True.
If you keep on taking the golden eggs and you're not nourishing the goose, how is this going to come up? One way or the other, there has to be that. Even culturally, there is a give and take. So somehow we end up hiding behind the culture of this. But actually, if you were to go according to the culture, you realize that culture is not demanding sometimes. There has to be appreciation.
Yes.
You are listening to More Than Money, a podcast collaboration brought to you by Sasfin Wealth. At Sasfin Wealth, we empower our clients to reach their global investment goals, to retire with dignity, and to leave a lasting legacy. If you would like to have real money conversations, visit sasfin.com/wealth and talk to us. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
I find that people struggle with that. I mean, we call it black tax or family tax. How important is having boundaries within yourself and setting boundaries for other people when handling family tax or family responsibilities?
It is very important because, again, I'm going to talk about this, nourishing yourself. You need to nourish yourself so that you can be able to give.
Yeah.
You need to nourish yourself. You need to take care of yourself so that you are in a good position that you can give. You need to say at some point, if you don't have, you don't have. But at the same time, it is important to budget.
Yes.
Because I think one of the things that people don't do is you just keep on going to the bank. As long as there's money there. I'm at fault on that sometimes. I don't do it. I have seen the difference when I'm budgeting. That by the end of the month, I'm like, oh, I still have money. Because when you've budgeted, you know when to say no.
Now, being a winemaker, I know it might seem like a very sexy thing, but it is an incredibly, incredibly hard thing. And turning your business into a profitable business can take years. Do you find that there was a time when people actually thought you were making money and you were barely even breaking even at that point?
It's a romantic job. It is. Look, it's fulfilling. I'll tell you this, it's a fulfilling job. It's fun to be in. But again, finances are important.
Yes.
So I remember when I just started, there was this company that requested a sponsorship of $40,000.
$40,000.
I looked at the email and I laughed. And I was like, damn, we're making it. This was me. I was like, we are making it if people think this is where we are. That means we're really good. But at the same time, I said, this means we are going to make this money anyways.
Sure.
Because when you're running a company, making money, it's a non-negotiable thing. But it's the how. Again, there is always struggles in the business. Some of them that you've got no control over.
Yeah.
It's a matter of really trying to do what you can. And I remember when I started, talking about bootstrapping, it was more like, how do I move from step A to step B to make sure that financially I'm not strained? So I had to negotiate with my clients to say, do you mind to pay cash? I had to negotiate with my suppliers. Can you give me extended terms? And to being open and transparent in terms of when I know that I cannot pay. I mustn't wait for them to come to me to say, when are you paying me? Or keep on saying, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to pay you.
Extremely important.
Exactly. And like recently, we were supposed to receive funds from a client. So the money got stuck somewhere. And so what we did, we went to one of our clients who wanted to pay at that time and said, listen, there's this issue. Just give us some time. And they were like, oh, no, that's fine. You can see us next month. And within a week, money came in and we paid.
Yes, don't duck and dive.
If you are open and transparent with your suppliers, they're not going to kill you.
Yes.
But duck and dive, then we're not going to work with you.
It speaks to the type of person that you are and how important is that in your personal life as well, dealing with your own finances.
When it's family, it becomes a struggle. Because it's like when you say you don't have money, people don't believe you.
Yeah.
No, you've got a business. How can you not have money? And you're like, whoa, business is separate and I'm separate. I earn a salary from the business. The business can have money and I find myself that I've got none.
Yes.
Because I've used my allocation, my salary to do certain things.
Yes.
So there is that separation.
How long did it take you to actually get that right? I pay myself a salary, the business finances belongs to the business, and my finances are my own personal finances.
From the beginning, the company had its own account. Even my first accountant who was helping me, if I take more than my salary, it will go to a loan. I remember at the beginning, I wasn't taking money from the company at all. I remember I was consulting, did a consultation in France. When I got paid, that money went to the company.
Yes.
Because I'm an employee of the company. So when I'm getting paid, it goes to the company. And then I was like, okay, now the company got its money, but can I have like at least 10% of this? Because Pela Hawa also went and worked. But it is important, especially when you know that you want to grow the business. For the business to grow, it needs that respect to say what is for the business is for the business.
Sure. And I think it takes a lot of discipline to actually do that, especially when you see money sitting in the account, right?
It takes a lot. I think also I'm grateful that I've got mentors. Look, he will say, I can't tell you what to do with your money. If you need money, you take money. But there was that thing in me to say, when somebody has volunteered their time to help me in the business, I mustn't be stupid about it.
Yes.
Because I've got mentors, I need to respect their time. How do I respect their time? I mustn't just jump into the account because there is money and I know that I can use it because I can. But it's just respect.
And I think that speaks so much to how we can even handle our own finances, that money requires respect. Money is a series of stories we tell ourselves. What are some of the stories you used to tell yourself about money growing up versus now?
Money here's money. So where there is money, money goes.
Yes.
But if you don't have money, then money run away from you, kind of. But that for me has been really based purely on, as I grow older, that it's all about budgeting and thinking deeply when you're utilizing money. If you don't know how to handle 1 rand, how are you going to know how to handle 1 million? You need to start with a little so that you can be able to utilize a lot of money. I read a book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
It's very interesting that book was written donkey years ago. It's been centuries and centuries. And it's been really reprinted and published. When you hear what was happening and you listen to what we're doing, and you realize that really, really the importance of taking the cent and putting aside. I remember one of the companies that decided to partner with me because, again, when you're an entrepreneur, go to the bank, ask for money.
Yes.
They want to take your blood. And
your whole DNA.
the whole DNA, and then at the end, they don't want to give you money. And so there's this company that I went to sell them wine, and somehow that spiraled to be something else, and then they give me loan every year. And one of the interesting things, like when it's end of the year, directors, you're going to take your dividends, right?
Yes.
For me, it's like the company needs to grow. So I don't take anything out of the business.
How do you make a living then if you don't take?
I earn a salary too. Let me tell you this. I earn a salary. I'm an employee. I've got a job.
Yeah.
And actually being with you here, for me, it's part of my job. I've got a job that I get paid for. So I do my budget like everybody else. I live with the little that I have for the company to grow. If I'm going to say the company's got money, let me take. then the company is not going to grow. What am I trying to build?
What is your vision for the company?
Currently we don't have our own seller. We don't have our own space. We're renting. At the end of the day, this company needs to have a home. And for that to happen, it requires that the management, which is me and others, we cannot just take from the business.
It requires you to be disciplined.
It requires discipline to say, here's the big goal. How do we get there?
It takes knowing what your bigger picture is. What are some of the fears that you still have when it comes to money?
Money comes, money goes.
So says every entrepreneur.
It comes, it goes, But I think as a business, as I said earlier, cash flow is very important. There are stages in the business where no matter how attentive you are, there's a saying in Zulu that says, "Liqoshwa libhekile." No matter how careful you are, things can happen. Life happens.
Yeah.
So some of the fears then is that as much as we are watching our cash flow, there are moments in the business where you're like, yes, I'm watching the cash flow, but there are certain things that are beyond control. How do we maintain those? It's an everyday struggle, especially when you are in a tipping point, because what happens, a business growth, get to a certain level. When you're at a certain level, it's a tipping point where you need to make a critical decision. And you know that I need to go there, but to go there, it's going to affect cash and there's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
If I don't go there, there's no growth. I'm going to be stagnant. So it's like, damn it, how do I do this? There's no financial muscle to move it that way.
So far in your journey, has there ever been a point where you wake up and you just say, you know what, I could just throw in the towel? And how did you get back up from feeling like that?
I've never been in a throwing up a towel situation. What I've been through, though, is there will be a day where I'm like, I'm just exhausted, I'm tired, all I want to do is to curl up in bed and sleep. But there were days where I'm like, but I've got appointments and and I'll just call my colleague, I'm like, I can't.
Yes.
So those things, they happen. But in terms of throwing a towel, I just feel, for me, as long as still alive, one foot in front of the other is more important. It's not a race, but we're making it a race. It's really like it's your own personal race, so it's a walk.
Do you remember a memory when you were building your business that you just did not have any money whatsoever, that it just felt overwhelming? Has there ever been a point in your journey where it was just extremely difficult financially?
The time it was extremely difficult, I was employed in my previous job.
Yes.
It was at that time where you get your salary and your salary is just too little for what you need to do. And money just goes out fast and you haven't paid everything, but the money's gone. And you have debt. I think that's what taught me to say, I don't want to go back to those days. Because what happens when you don't sleep at night? I think that's when you're trying to find out, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I working if this is where I end up at?
Yes.
And then when I started Aslina, I remember, even now, though I don't do that, I don't look at my cash flow in the evening.
In the evening? Why specifically in the evening?
Because then I'm not going to sleep. I want my sleep. I don't look at cash flow in the evening.
That's a pretty good tip.
My last meeting should be either production or with the marketing team, not with the finance person. Nope.
A lot of people struggle with debt. A lot of people struggle with pulling themselves out of a really bad financial situation. And you say that you were in that type of situation. How did you manage to get out of it? What kind of steps did you take and how grueling was it to actually pay off your debt and start living on a positive balance?
So a friend of mine introduced me to a financial advisor. And so when I met him, I was like, dude, I'm in debt. And he was like, let's see. And he said, okay, I'll tell you where we start. When you get paid, don't pay this one, just pay the credit card because that's where high interest is. So it was a matter of just having someone to say, suck it up. This is how we're going to target this, and then we paid out the credit card. I remember it was probably over 3 months that I paid out the credit card. And he's like, okay, fine, let's start with a 5-year plan. Let's start with your daily 72-hour savings. You could, even though you're putting 200 Rand or 300 Rand, let's do it.
Yep.
And then we started doing that while I'm trying to clear out the debt. And I realized that when you don't have debt, it's just refreshing.
Like you just needed an accountability partner, someone to say, to whip you in shape, someone to say, you know what, let's focus, let's get this thing done and out of the way.
Yes. First, you need to accept that I'm in deep.
Yeah.
Because unless you accept that you're in deep, some people could say, no, but you're not in, like it wasn't bad. And for me, it was bad because I want to see that I've got money at the end of the month. I don't want to see myself not having money. Even if I'm left with 300 rand, but I want to know that this one is mine.
As a last question, Ntsiki, what message would you give to young women who also want to follow the road less traveled?
I always feel that don't do something because of money. Don't do the path because you want money. Because you're going to make money and then you're like, okay, fine, there's no need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Or you're going to do it and there's not going to be money. And you're like, at the beginning, okay, because you went there for money. The beginning never have money. And then you're going to say, there is no money. And then like, I don't want to do it. So do something because there's a bigger picture. Anything that involves money, as money is energy, it is important to nourish yourself first. Know where your cup gets filled. Because when your cup is full, you will be able to do things you want to do.
Yeah. That is such fantastic advice, Ntsiki. Thank you so much. You are an incredible human being. And I think a lot of us, especially if you're young, there's so much you can learn about patience, about having a bigger vision for your life. So thank you so much for taking this time to chat to us, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great.
This was a Sasfin Wealth podcast. Visit sasfin.com/wealth for more information.